Hey, this is Mikey with another After Effects tutorial. In this video, it's going to be a bit of a tutorial, a bit of a review of the Physics Now extension plugin for After Effects. Mikey's Production Tips is brought to you by Cinema Spice, After Effects tools, video overlays and backgrounds, and sound effects. Physics Now is a new plugin from Crunchy Creatives, and you can see it's on sale for just a few more days. There's a link in the description where you can come and check it out, learn more. Make sure you click on that link. Full disclosure, I was given this plugin as a free copy for review, so I have not purchased it. Also, that the link is an affiliate link. I just want to be completely transparent with all that. But again, if you do decide to buy it and use that link, it does give me a bit of a money kickback, and I will greatly appreciate that. You can see there's lots of things it can do. In this video, what I want to do is, first I want to show you kind of how it works, how it works inside the After Effects timeline and in the composition window, which is really neat and handy. And then I want to show you how to create this pinball machine. So let's go into just kind of a basic composition. Right here I have a ground layer. You can see it's kind of rolling, and then I have this ball with another ball inside of it. And how Physics Now works is it's an extension, and you can dock it wherever you want. And then there's 6 buttons. And most of these buttons, there's really only 3 buttons that you'll probably use the most, which is this first Create Dynamic layer, second Create Static layer, and then this Simulate button. The other ones, this is remove, this layer, turn it back into a normal layer. It removes the effect from it. That's simulate using keyframes, and this resets your simulation. So it works pretty great. You can just keep on resimulating, and it's non-destructive that way. So there's 2 types of layers in Physics Now. One is a static layer, one is a dynamic layer. Dynamic moves, static don't move, but they still interact with each other. So a static layer won't be affected by gravity. A dynamic layer will be affected by gravity. So for a scene like this, say I want that ball to fall down and kind of roll along that. What I would do is I would take this ground layer, and this is just a shape layer, a stroke with no fill, right? And same thing with that tire. It's just a shape layer circle with no fill, and then this ball is a shape layer circle with a fill, but there's no stroke to it. So let's take that ground, make that a static layer. And when I do that, it creates this new null, physics world control. And you can see there are some controls in here where you can change gravity and direction and things like that. And that is keyframeable, which is cool. Now let's take the tire and the ball, and I want both of these to be dynamic because they're going to be moving. And let's click the dynamic link. So you can see that image looks like 2, balls that are bouncing off each other. This one looks like something that's landing on some ground. So that's kind of how you can see them. This is ground, so I'm going to hit the ground button. That's moving, so I'm going to hit that one. Now once I have those set, you can see it created some effects on each layer where you can have different settings individually for each layer. Right now, it's not doing anything because I have to hit the simulate button. And what this will do is you hit the simulate button, it'll simulate all of the movements, and then it'll paste in fancy expressions over rotation and position to make it all work. So let's hit the simulate button. And then there it goes. All right. So what's cool about this is it's in your timeline, so I can move that, and it respects where that is. So I can hit resimulate, and it won't start until it lands right in, which is cool. I can also let's duplicate this. And kind of have them all at different places. Hit simulate. and you can create some cool stuff that way. I'm going to delete all of those. All right, resimulate. Anytime you make a change, you're going to have to hit the resimulate button. So this is the basics. Also text. It works with text. It's quite large text. But if I were to make this text a dynamic layer and hit simulate, you can see it automatically breaks it all up into pieces. Pretty cool. So that's kind of the basics of it. Now, a few things, you can push this quite far, but I have been able to push it, to its extremes, where it's probably not supposed to function in certain ways. I've been trying to make things that it really hasn't been built to make, and I've been able to get it to crack a little bit and to crash on me a few times. That's not something I would normally be doing. I just wanted to see how far I could push it. So with that being said, when you're using this plugin, make sure you do save and save often, just in case something happens with anything like that. Anytime you download a new plugin or an update to the program, make sure you're saving often, and that you're not doing it in the middle of a mission critical project you're working on. That's just safe to do. All right, now that we understand the basics of how this physics simulation works, let's go into that pinball machine. So how I have this pinball machine set up is we have the background color, then this background square, and then this walls. And these walls, I have them colored blue. This is the first one that I'm going to have a physics layer on. These other ones are just for looks. So on this wall, I want this to be a static layer because it's not going to be moving with gravity, but I want the pinball to bounce and slide off of it. Then I've got bumpers. I have the bumpers on a different layer because I want some different properties to them. I want them to be more bouncy. Then I have the right and the left flipper. And something you'll notice with this is where the anchor point is. You can see it's right there. That way, when I use it like a flipper, it rotates in the right spot. And then I have the ball. Now the ball, I have it colored a different color. That's just for my organization, because this is going to be a different layer. This is going to be a dynamic physics layer, not a static one. So let's set these all up. I'm going to take these four that I want to be static, highlight them, click the static button, and then the ball, click the dynamic button, and let's hit simulate and see what happens. All right. You can see I also have a mat on here, and what that's for is when the ball falls out of range, it'll just mat off. And that's just with an alpha mat. Okay, so I've got the first simulation, and when we're doing a pinball like this, where I'm going to have the flipper kind of move the ball around, this isn't a real-time physics engine. There's not a real-time physics engine for After Effects, so it's not like playing a video game. I got to kind of keyframe this little bit by little bit, and you build it up from left to right. So I go this way, and then I have it hit it, and then I got to resimulate, see where it lands, hit it again, resimulate. So you're constantly resimulating as you go along. And as long as you don't change anything before where you're at, then everything should be fine. But if you change everything before, then you got to kind of redo everything after that change. So, but first thing, I want to make sure that I get the movement and the physics of this right before I start hitting the flippers around. So the first thing I noticed that this is the gravity is off because it's not straight up and down. I want it to be more of a tilted, like a pinball machine. So let's bring that down. Let's see what 4 looks like. Gravity of 4, that's a little less than half. All right. That's looking a little more like it's rolling right. Another thing, you can see that this kind of get caught in that corner there, and I don't want that, so let's make these flippers move down a little bit. And the other thing is on these walls, I think the collision geometry is, the resolution is a little bit off. And so This is set up to automatically create collision geometry, but when you have curves and things like this, it's not going to be perfect, and so it gets close. And I think it might be a little bit off here, so I'm going to bring this resolution up, let's say to like 8. So let's resimulate that. Let's see what happens. Okay, that looks better. That's kind of flowing more how it should. All right, now let's take that ball, and what I want it to do is I want it to be shooting up. So in the dynamics, or dynamic settings, you have this initial force. And in here, we can have it use keyframes. And what that does is you can set keyframes, and as soon as your keyframes are over, it'll take whatever direction it's moving and kind of just continue that on and apply physics to it. I could do that, but I find it easy right now just to have the velocity, let's set that to like 20, and the direction up, and then it'll just give it a little boost at the beginning. Let's hit play or simulate and see what happens. All right. That looks like pinball. Now what's kind of cool is you can, any little change will make a big difference. So I moved that ball over 3 pixels to the left. Let's see what it does. It's about the same actually. So give it a little few more movements. All right. I like that. That's a good way to start. I'm going to move this just for a minute to right here because I want to see what it looks like when it bounces off of these bumpers. All right, because what I want to do is I want to add some more bounciness to the bumpers. In their dynamics, they have their own individual bounce for all these bumper layers. So let's set that up a little higher. Let's say 1.5 instead of 0.5, and let's simulate it. And that's looking more like bumpers from a pinball machine. Okay, so now that we've got this initial movement, let's put that ball back over here somewhere. Let's resimulate that, see where it's going. We want to have the flippers. Now we can see here, if we don't do anything, this guy's going to die pretty quickly. So we need to, right here, hit that pinball with this right flipper. So on the rotation, keyframe, rotation, let's go for 2 frames, have it be 40 degrees, and then back down to 0. And I might have to adjust this to hit 1 frame earlier. And now, even though it's pre-simulated, so that ball's not going to move in the right. It's not going to move like it hit it. So let's re-simulate it. Every time you make a new hit, you got to kind of re-simulate. Now, one thing with pinball is sometimes you swing, you hit the flipper button even though you're not even going to hit it, right? Or you just hit it a few times early. All right, but that one will hit it there. So let's re-simulate it. And now let's get the left flipper in there on some action. Rotate. Let's go -40 on this one. Let's simulate that, see what that does. It's kind of like playing pinball, but just really slow. You got to take it one hit at a time. let's have that one frame earlier. Actually, one frame later. Now, if you've ever seen something like this in pinball, what you do is you stop it, right? So let's click the rotation, go forward 2 frames, and look, -40, but we won't go back down. Remember, we're holding. But remember, that ball already has its set path, so let's re-simulate. And then let's let it go. Back down to 0. Re-simulate. And we are going to give it a good hit. Hit re-simulate. And I'm thinking I want to make this loop. Let's see if we can get that one frame later, see if that makes a difference. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to cheat it. So if I remember this ball at the beginning, let's turn on our rulers. Let's bring some guide layers in and just mark right where that ball is. And then here at the end, this last hit is kind of going in that direction. But I'm going to just speed it up and make sure it gets there. So I'm going to keyframe the ball, and then I'm going to just loop it at that point. So let's keyframe the position. And I'm just going to move it to right there. And at this point, let's trim down our comp. And then that should be looping. And then this guy never loses, which is kind of fun. All right, let's see how that looks. I'm gonna hold it. And good enough for government work. All right. So let's add, now that we've got the movement of the ball how we like it, let's add a few little niceties. And the main one, or actually the only one I'm going to be doing in this tutorial, is I want these bumpers to look like they're reacting. So how I'm going to do that is just by hand keyframe it just every time it gets hit. We're going to come in here to the bumpers and find the right path, keyframe the size, move forward 1 frame, go up to, this one is 90, 2 frames, back to 82. I'm going to copy those keyframes because I'll use them on all of it. All right, hit another bumper right there. Hit that bumper again. Hit a bumper again right there. And you just got to kind of go through and watch it. I think that's the last one. All right. So that is pretty much it. I hope you learned something great. And if you have any questions about the plugin, feel free to ask them. Just put them down in the comments. If I don't know the answer, I'll reach out to the creator and see if I can get an answer from him. or if you just have any general questions about After Effects, then feel free to ask them. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, Physics Now, Crunchy Creatives, definitely go check it out. There's a link in the description, and see all of the things it can do.